what motivated him to run for city council. We're here at Meet Chico for Taco Tuesday.
Hi, thanks for having me. This is a cool place to be. When I moved to Chico, I lived just down here on West Shasta for a few years, and this was actually my old paper route through here, so this is kind of a cool. This wasn't here, but I'm glad to be here.
For the ER?
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
So I'll tell you a story about what motivated me to run. I've always had an interest in politics, at least since my undergrad in sociology at Chico State. But I grew up without a lot of money, and so I always had this limiting belief that running for office was really not going to ever be available to me without wealthy friends or being wealthy myself. But something happened recently that pushed me in it, and it goes back a little ways. When I was a dispatcher at CHP, I took a 911 call from a student who was on a bus that had just collided with a FedEx truck on I-5. And he explained to me through his panic that he was part of a large group of high school students that were en route from LA to go tour Humboldt State. And of course they didn't make it to Humboldt State that day, and 10 people died in that accident. And fast forward to this recent May, when the council was bringing up discussion about trying to appeal to the CSU chancellor about keeping Chico State students here during the pandemic because of the effect on our economy. And Councilmember Morgan, my opponent, went into the story about how he thought a lot of campuses would be okay. Fresno's going to be okay, San Diego's going to be okay. But then he said, Humboldt might feel something, but they don't feel a lot of stuff up there anyway, whatever. And I immediately jumped back to that day and that phone call and that tragedy. And I knew that in that moment, I had to do whatever I could to get that kind of stereotyping off of council. Poor or not, wealthy donors or not, it was a fight that had to be fought.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember that accident very, very well. It was horrible.
Yeah, it was tough, and
Yeah.
I well up every time I drive by there still.
Yes, absolutely.
So anyway, that and again, that's not an isolated incident. That's kind of his rhetoric and kind of his style to be to talk in callous. You're the second person who would use that callous about people who are different, and so when it hit me personally in that way, I knew that I had to take a stand.
I'm really glad you did. Really glad you did. So now that you've taken your stand, you're running for council, you've got your campaign going.
Yes.
Once you've won, what do you plan to do?
Well, I want to say this before I talk about any specific policy. The most important thing to me is understanding that as a council member, you're one of 7,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
And so there's a lot of candidates out there, especially at the national level, who run with these banners of I'm going to give you this and I'm going to give you that and I'm going to do this. And in a presidential election, that makes some sense because there's the opportunity to unilaterally do that
Absolutely.
stuff, right? But in a city council race, I find it totally just disingenuous for people that are rallying in that way. Because if you can't have productive dialogue on council and get people to and negotiate, right, with people,
together, yes.
Exactly, then you can have all the policy you want in the world and it's never going anywhere.
You're
right?
absolutely right.
And so, I've talked about throughout my campaign, things that are important to me or things that I've noticed, affordable housing, food security, obviously, issues surrounding homelessness and public health, those are all things that are important, right, and need to be discussed, and policy needs to reflect what our what our citizens want in that regard. But at the end of the day, again, you're one of 7, and so to me, one of the most important things about being a council member is being someone who can be collaborative, who can inspire folks, who isn't going to end dialogue by being callous, right?
Correct.
And I see that far too many times where that kind of dialogue on council causes talks to stall, and you wonder why council meetings take so long, and why it takes so long to get some things put forward that people want. And so to me, the attitude and the demeanor mean as much or more than any sort of policy.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree that it seems that we've built a climate of wanting to create gridlock versus wanting to create solutions.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's reflective of the national environment, right? If this Trump era has just brought us to this point, and now it's the new socially acceptable way to be so divisive and be and not willing to negotiate, or if Trump is actually a symptom of the fact that our culture is getting that way. It's hard to tell what came first.
Right.
But my goal as a candidate and as a council member would be to do whatever I can to ease that and get back to a level of civility and progress.
So, in this Trumpian environment that seems to have permeated our local culture as well, what do you think is the prescription to remove our local climate away from that?
So, I'm glad you
Because
asked.
it wasn't always like this.
I'm glad you asked that question. I think, kind of going back to what I said before, I think if you're going into discussions with a attitude of, oh, I can't wait to talk about this, instead of an attitude of, oh, I can't wait to get this done, or push this agenda, or take this posture. If you're going into discussions with this idea of, hey, let's talk about this, not let's see what I can do to get my way or get my agenda passed, we're going to see a lot better progress, right? And so I view myself as being somebody who is more about bringing forward what the constituents want than any sort of Curtis's agenda that needs to get through.
Right. So, what do you feel that the city council's agenda should be for 2021?
Well, the biggest, I think,
Regardless of who's on city council.
sure. I think the biggest issue that I've seen, not only hearing from constituents, but what I've witnessed in 30 years of living here, right, is the huge gap that we have when it comes to housing. We have built for as long as I've lived here, we've seemed to build in predominantly single-family homes, which is great. There's certainly a market for that, and so in no way am I saying we should stop doing that.
Right.
But we've kind of left any sort of affordable housing behind, right? And so we have a lot of working families that are struggling to make their rent every month. My mom was one of them, raising 3 kids here. And if we don't build in some sort of balance, right, you're going to end up with, a few wealthy folks like leading a city in tatters, right?
Right.
And so we really need to work going forward to at least build in some sort of balance, right? So that we have an opportunity to give everyone in this city, right, not just wealthy folks, the ability to thrive. And the reason that that's so important is not only in, if people don't have money if 60% of their if their income is going to rent, they can't spend money in small business.
No.
They can't contribute to the economy. And so really, by creating a more balanced housing situation here, we're going to help our small businesses. We're going to attract businesses that might not otherwise come here if their employees can't afford to live here, right? So there's a lot of ways in which doing a better balance, or doing housing in a better balance, is going to help in all of these other ways, rather than this attitude that, well, you're just trying to you're just trying to give handouts to the poor. That's kind of the agenda that the people that oppose that idea, the narrative that goes around.
Right, and there are certainly more than enough studies out of the area now that show that if you don't provide affordable housing for the people in your community, you lose your community, and then you don't have enough workers within your community to support not only to support your businesses as far as shopping within those businesses, but to market those businesses. So you have a dual drain. So it behooves us as a community to support housing.
Right. It was interesting. I posted a video on my Facebook page during the campaign shortly after the students, were told that they had to go back, that they couldn't remain. And one of the things that I was pushing for was trying to encourage people to shop local this holiday season, right? It was September at the time, but I was like, hey, if you're thinking about the holidays,
it's never too early.
right? Let's see what we can do to shop locally to support our local businesses, right? And at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, gosh, there are so many people who would love to do that and want to see our local businesses successful, but just can't because of the housing gap that we have. And so, it felt a little weird doing that video in the sense that, gosh, I'm talking to a half-empty room. If these people are going, I would like to do that, I just can't.
Yeah.
And I would love to see us get to a place where everybody had the opportunity to support local businesses.
I agree, and it's more important now than ever. Especially now, we don't want to lose our amazing downtown infrastructure.
Right.
Our downtown is such a jewel.
Absolutely.
We're so lucky to have it.
Right.
We don't want to lose that. We want to see it grow, shine even brighter. We don't want to see it go.
Right, and I think it's best served when we have both. Right, we have the large single family homes. I was talking to a realtor friend of mine recently who was saying that there is a huge shortage of the $500,000 to $700,000 homes, which means we need those, right? If there's a shortage in those, and those prices are skyrocketing, we want the market to bear what it'll bear, but we can't leave people behind in lieu of just that, right? And so, again, I want to make clear that I'm not saying that we should stop building in one way, but just build in balance.
I think there's absolutely room for both, and we definitely have the land for both. We're not short on land here. But there has to be the motivation and the desire to do, and the capital to do both.
Right, and exactly, and that's why I've said from the beginning in my campaign and in this video, I would just be one of 7, and so it's going to take a lot more than just me saying we need this, right? It needs to be understood, and hopefully the public will see that. I mean, ultimately, if you continue to do what we've been doing, they'll see it whether they want to or not. But I would love to see us get some sort of education out there about this, so that we don't kind of fall off the deep end before it's too late.
Yeah.